Oh, King Saul went ballistic. Then you go back. He said, okay, go back and get him, bring him here in his own bed, and I'll kill him myself. So that's exactly what they did. They went back to David's house, went in there, and he said, we got to take you to King Saul. He said, to bring you into the old bed. And they took back the covers. And there was this dummy laying there. Whew, they went and told King Saul. He was furious at his daughter, but at least he didn't kill her. It says in verse 18 that David fled and escaped and came to Samuel. Samuel, the man of God. Samuel, his mentor. Samuel, his spiritual advisor. Samuel, his godly counselor. And David tells Samuel all that King Saul has done to him. Well, in the rest of chapter 19, Saul once again sends a hit team down to get David. But this time, the Spirit of God is so strong around David that they're powerless. And they open their mouths to curse David, and all that comes out is praise. And they get out of there. So undaunted, Saul sends 3 different groups of men down to get David. And the same thing happens to them. They get around David and they want to curse him and they want to kill him. But all that will come out of their mouths are praises to David and to his God. Now, folks, please understand. These are Saul's mightiest warriors, his meanest hombres. And for these guys to come back like whipped dogs with their tails between their legs, you know they were up against something big. But now big bad Saul says, okay, I'll go down and get him myself. Talk about dumb and dumber. And just as soon as Saul, with all his troops and all his entourage that he has bragged to, just as soon as he comes riding up, the king of Israel in his royal chariot to where David is, the Spirit of God, boom, hits King Saul. And he starts praising David and praising David's God. And Saul begins prophesying how God is going to use King David on the throne of Israel to do such mighty and marvelous works, and what a wonderful and prosperous king David is going to be, and how God will prosper him. Amen. And about that time, King Saul starts taking all his clothes off. And then he lays down flat out on the ground, belly down with his face in the dirt. And he doesn't move for one whole day. And one whole night. For 24 long hours he doesn't move. So here's their fearless leader acting like a dope, buck naked, laying in the dirt, not moving for hours. So what are his soldiers supposed to do? Hey, maybe he's dead. Well, then go over and check it out and see. No way, man. You go over and check him out. Are you kidding? I'm not touching him. Man, neither am I. So there they sat for 24 hours just looking at this ignorant man laying there buck naked in the dirt. All his soldiers. So Saul has already lost the power of a king, and now he's lost whatever little bit of dignity and respect he might have had left as a king. And the point is this: God protects David, but he doesn't protect Saul. And it's just that simple, folks. When you are on God's side, you are in his loving care and he can protect you. But when you are like King Saul and you have removed yourself from God by a life of willful disobedience and cherished sin, and you refuse to let go of, then you are left out in the wild, cruel world for Satan to ravage. God will never leave you. But God has given you the power of choice. And if you want to leave him, he will let you go. God will never take anyone kicking and screaming into heaven.
Amen.
God only wants people in heaven who would be happy there.
Amen.
So you just live for the Lord, and you just serve the Lord and turn all your problems over to the Lord, and the Spirit of God will encamp around you, and the Spirit of God will take care of you.
Amen.
Okay, we will conclude today with point number 3, David's fear. Point number 1 was David's fame. Point number 2 was David's flight. And point number 3 is David's fear. The first verse of chapter 20 says, "And David fled from Naioth to Ramah, and came and said before Johnathan." So once again, Johnathan drops into the story. Here that friend just drops into the story. And isn't it great to have a loyal friend that you can trust? And David says, "What have I done? What is my iniquity? What is my sin before your father that he seeks my life?" Let me tell you something, folks. You are listening to the words of a man under tremendous pressure, a man that is running for his life. So please understand this fear to some extent. Because I think any of us really, none of us have been hunted like an animal for months on end like this. I think any of us would have a hard time under these conditions. And David is under an unbelievable pressure, and he cries, "Why is your dad trying to kill me?" But Johnathan doesn't think this is true. And he says in verse 2, "God forbid. Thou shalt not die. Behold, my father will do nothing, either great or small, but that he will show it me." But in verse 3, David explains to him that he just doesn't know everything that's been going on. So they devise a little plan. And David says, "Okay, look, I'm not going to be there for the New Moon Festival. So you check your dad out and tell him that I'm not going to be there and see how he reacts." Johnathan says, "Okay, I'll go out in the field with my little boy. I have a little archery set for him. And we'll start shooting some arrows." Johnathan continues, "And you, David, you hide here in the woods, and I'll go check out things, and we'll see what the situation is with my dad. Now, if it is indeed as you suspect and fear, that he's trying to kill you, then I'll shoot the arrows far beyond my son, and I'll tell him that the arrows are far beyond him." But you know the story, folks. We heard it in Sabbath school when we were growing up. Saul was furious when David didn't come to the new moon celebration. And he was so furious that he even threw a javelin at Johnathan. Saul tried to kill his own son. He was so mad. So Johnathan goes out and does a little archery practice with his little boy. And he shoots an arrow way out in the field, way over his son's head.